In this video, we're going to be talking about some new vocabulary words, and those new vocabulary words are altitudes and orthocenters, and these are all going to be related to our triangles. So, again, every single video I'm emphasizing the importance of vocabulary. You guys should be making study cards, flashcards, however you study for anything where you need to memorize, you should be doing that, because if you do not know the vocabulary, you are going to struggle a lot. So, this new definition, an altitude of a triangle is a segment drawn from the vertex of a triangle that is perpendicular to the opposite side. Now, a super important thing to know is that an altitude can be inside, on a side, or outside of the triangle. So here are some examples where we have our acute triangle here. Now, this is one altitude drawn from this vertex down to the other side. So if I knew that this was an altitude, I can make some conclusions. I know I'd have a right angle here and a right angle there, right? Now, in a right triangle, an altitude can actually be a side of the triangle, right? Because we know that in a right triangle, we have this 90-degree angle here. So if you consider this side, right, where we're going from this vertex down to the opposite side, we already know that we're creating 90 degrees, right? So it's kind of interesting here that in a right triangle, the sides can be considered altitudes. Now, in an obtuse triangle, again, this altitude here that's drawn in blue, it satisfies the condition, right? We're going from a vertex and we're going down. However, what you should see is that we had to extend our side a little bit to make that altitude. So that's okay. If when you're doing this, if you need to extend the side of your triangle in order for your altitude to connect, that is something that is totally logical and correct to do. So getting into this though, these are just singular examples of altitudes. Now, since an altitude is drawn from the vertex to the opposite side, this kind of goes along with medians, right? Medians, they were drawn from the vertex to the opposite side at the midpoint, and since there are 3 vertices, there were 3 medians. Now, this also applies here. There are 3 vertices of a triangle, so we are able to draw altitudes from each of those 3 vertices. So each triangle, there should be 3 altitudes, or there are always 3 altitudes when you have a triangle. And again, the reason is because we have 3 vertices that we can draw these segments from. Now, another new vocabulary word. Since there are 3 altitudes, all 3 of those altitudes are going to intersect at a point. This point that they intersect at is called the orthocenter of a triangle. Now, another important thing, the same way that our altitudes, like if we go back to the last slide, we said that our altitudes can intersect, they can be inside of the triangle or they can be outside of the triangle, right? So that means that your orthocenter, in this example, it's inside of the triangle, but there might be some cases where your altitudes are meeting outside of the triangle, and that's okay too. Your orthocenter does not need to be inside of the triangle. Okay. Now, using these definitions, we got to get in the habit of making some of our conclusions, right? So if I'm just looking at this diagram on the left here, if I'm looking at this diagram, first thing I know I have 3 segments coming from my vertices, right? So to me right now with my knowledge, these are either going to be medians or they're going to be altitudes. Now what is screaming out to me right now are these right angle markings. So since I have segments drawn from my vertices down to the other sides making right angles, that is a dead giveaway that I have 3 altitudes. Now, if this was different, if those markings weren't there, I would not be able to conclude that. Now, again, I have this point here, and I learned a new vocabulary word to describe where all 3 altitudes meet, then I would be able to know that point A is called the orthocenter. I almost wrote centroid there on accident. Now, in diagram 2 over here, we also can go backwards, right? If I know that this point is the orthocenter, one thing I can conclude is that I have 3 altitudes. Now, using our vocabulary, which is super important, I know we're creating 90-degree angles, right? So even if I only knew that this was the orthocenter, I can go ahead and label where all of my right angles are at. So again, knowing definitions are super important because you're going to be able to make so many conclusions if you know your vocabulary well. And sometimes these conclusions you might need to solve a problem. So we're actually going to go, in this video, we're going to do the constructions for altitudes in Orthocenter, but this is good because you guys already kind of know how to do it. So again, an altitude is just a perpendicular line, right? So we've done this already. We've done the perpendicular line constructions, but to construct the orthocenter, we're going to have to do it 3 times. So let's just get right into it. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to construct the altitude. So we're going to do first altitude from point C, or from vertex C to AB. That is our first one. So this is prior knowledge. If you guys need some help with this construction, you can go back to that video where the video is called Constructing Perpendicular Lines Through a Point Off of the Line. But remember, and I'll do this in red, our first step is to make our reference arc. So our needle goes on the vertex and our reference arc has to touch our side twice. Now here, my reference arc is touching twice, but if it was not, I can go ahead and extend side AB with my straight edge. Now what we're going to do is take our needle, place it on one of the intersection points, and we are going more than halfway of the length to the other one. And we're going to go ahead and make an arc here. And then we're going to go on the other intersection point and do the same thing. So if you need to pause and rewind to refresh your memory, then that is okay. Our last step is, once we have our intersections, we are drawing a line straight through, but that line has to come from C. So we're going to go from C, and we're going to go all the way down through our intersections, right? So what I know now is that this line, and let's highlight it in blue, I know that that line, that is an altitude. Again, because I've just constructed it to be perpendicular. So if I go from C through these intersections that we've created, I know I'm forming my 90-degree angles, and that is sufficient enough to say we've created an altitude. Now what I want you guys to do is, on your own, try to construct the orthocenter. So you'll pause the video, and maybe we can write these steps too. So you need the other 2 altitudes. So you need the altitude from A to BC, and then you need it from B to AC. So pause the video now, try to do those constructions, and then I'm actually going to go through it in the video as well. So pause it, try it, and then resume when you are ready. So now we're going to do from A to BC. So I'm going to do the constructions in green. So again, remember, my needle goes on the vertex that I am trying to draw my altitude from, and we need to make our reference arc that touches our side twice. Now this is a perfect example because look, my reference arc is touching BC only one time right here, and I need it to touch twice. So what I'm actually going to do is take my straight edge, and I'm going to extend side BC. So that I have another intersection point over here. All right, now your needle goes on one of the intersections and you are just going more than halfway of that length. Now, your pictures are going to get very messy here, so that's why it's important to work very slow. And you can use different colors if you have them. Now, in an effort to make this less messy, I'm not going to draw the full arcs. I'm only going to draw the arcs where the intersections are going to go. So I've drawn my 2 arcs from there. Now I need to go my other intersection, keep my compass width the same. I have an intersection there, and I will also have an intersection over here. Now I messed up a bit. I don't have an intersection, so I'm going to go back here and extend that arc a little bit more. Now let's draw this altitude in pink. So again, we're going from A with our straight edge we should be using. I'm going to go from A through where those 2 intersection points were. Let's fix that. Okay. So from A through our 2 intersections. And again, you guys can already see this picture is getting very messy. However, just go slow. Now again, what we've just done was we've created a perpendicular line that goes from A to side BC. Now, just by definition, I have another altitude here. Right? So again, when we have our altitude, we want to make sure we are marking where our 90-degree angles are at. And so far, I can kind of see where the intersection is going to be. Remember, my first altitude is blue, my second altitude is pink. Last but not least, we are on step 3. We got to go from side B to side AC. So I'm just going to do this one in black. And again, our picture is getting very messy, so we're going to try our best. My needle can't go perfectly on B because it keeps like picking up the points, but we're going to just leave it there. So again, we got to create our reference arc. Oh, that one's not good. Make our compass a little wider. There it is. There's my reference arc. I have my 2 intersections. So my needle's going to go on one of them. I'm going to open my compass up more than halfway. And I'm going to go ahead and create my intersections. Now, I know that this picture looks insane right now. But again, that's why it is important to just go step by step, go slow, and just do your best here. So again, now I'm going to draw from B through my intersections. And that altitude is in black. So I know my right angles are going to be here. Now, this picture looks crazy. However, my altitudes are in black, blue, and pink. And what you should see is that they intersect at one point here. Now, using our vocabulary, I know that that point is called the orthocenter. So you should also draw an arrow over there and label that as orthocenter. So my biggest piece of advice is to just go slow. Don't get upset. Don't get freaked out if your diagram looks as messy as this. Again, just take it step by step and just make sure that you are being as neat as you can be. And if you can use colors, then you should go ahead and do that.